Hello everybody. This is a video to explain the basically the aerodynamic controversy about Ducati MotoGP and all the appeal thing. So basically, let's start from the regulations because actually what it seems to be is some sort of a diffused opinion that Ducati did something wrong or against the regulations. So the first thing I did was reading and analyzing the regulations, the technical regulations of the MotoGP. And you'll find the link to the regulations in the description. So first of all, the most important thing is who's able to validate a bike, specifically all the aerodynamic devices, the fairing and all the aerodynamic devices of a bike. The regulations, the MotoGP World Championship regulations, says that there is literally at page 108, the regulation says the technical director will be the sole judge of whether a device or fairing design falls into the above definition, which is the definitions of components designed to have a specific aerodynamic effect. And the judge, the technical director, will issue and update the general design guidelines on which he will base his judgment. These four sentences basically say that MotoGP technical rules are interpreted by just one person, the technical director. So basically, on another page, the regulations say about all the aerodynamic parts of the bike, which are called in general in the regulations aerobody. The aerobody, meaning all the things that are intended to have a direct aerodynamic effect. The regulations say the aerobody is approved and samples or detailed drawings to the satisfaction of the technical director must be delivered to the technical director prior to the close of the technical control at the first event of the season. So, your bike, your aerobody, the aerobody of the bike must be approved by the technical director during the technical verification session before the first event of the season. So this is these two points are the main points of the regulations involved in these questions, in this Ducati, let's call it controversy. So let's jump at the first event related to this issue, to this Ducati spoilers issue. The first event, which is mentioned directly by the teams involved in this issue, and particularly by Aprilia, by Ducati, is Valencia 2018. The race during which Yamaha used a spoiler called water spoiler, basically something that helps, that it was intended to avoid the water coming from the front wheel to impact against the rear wheel, possibly causing aquaplaning. So both Ducati and Aprilia say that they were inspired by this component, and Gigi Dall'Igna specifically says they were so inspired that they start thinking about a component to make something similar. In fact, they tested this component, which is the object of the controversy we are talking about. They decided to test this component. They designed, they made some simulations, thermofluid dynamic simulations, to test the effectiveness of the spoiler, and they tested it during the Qatar tests 2 weeks before the race. So Ducati says, and Dall'Igna says, basically the main effect is to reduce by 7-8 Celsius degrees the average temperature of the rear tire, which is according to what Dall'Igna says, is the main issue with the rear tire that they are using now, and particularly in Qatar. At the same time, Dall'Igna says the spoiler produces just a slight aerodynamic effect, which means a vertical force due to the same phenomenon, which is the displacement of an air flux from the bottom from the bottom of the bike, where there is basically fresh air, to the front part of the rear wheel. So basically Dall'Igna says that this spoiler also produces some downforce effect, which is obvious. So basically, what is the main point here? The main point is if you have an air duct or something that is intended to deviate the air flux against the rear tire from the bottom of the bike, you have to change direction to the air flux and give it some upwards acceleration, which means creating downforce. So the cooling effect on the rear tire is strictly connected with the production of some downforce. But let's keep on analyzing what happened. So after the test, before the first race of the season in Qatar, Ducati asked the technical director of the championship, to evaluate if the spoiler was regular or not. And they just asked the right person, because somebody on the internet, the commentators, etc., say that the spoiler, Ducati spoiler, was not in the spirit of the regulations. But nobody, apart from the technical director, is intended to interpret correctly the technical regulation. So basically, what happened is the technical director validated the spoiler, and that's why Ducati decided to use it during the race. Before the race, some constructors, almost all of them except Yamaha, asked Ducati not to use the spoiler. Otherwise, they would have made a protest against Ducati after the race. And what Dall'Igna and Ducati decided to do, correctly in my opinion, was just to keep on going with the solution, because actually the technical director validated it. And the regulations say, as I mentioned before, that the technical director is the sole judge able to validate a device or fairing design. So, as it turned out, Dovizioso won the race in front of Marquez and the Honda, and as in some way promised, the Ducati's opponents, except for Yamaha, made protest against Ducati spoiler. First of all, the first degree of judgment is from the steward, from the panel of the steward, and they confirmed Ducati bikes as regular. After that, Honda, Aprilia, KTM and Suzuki made an appeal. The court took a couple of weeks, 10 days, almost 10 days to make the judgment. And it is important to notice that during the appeal, just Ducati brought in front of the court technical executives, I mean engineers. All the other constructors brought their testimony through managers. This is extremely meaningful to me because it means that basically the real, I would say, the real purpose of this appeal was a political try to, in some way, force the regulations to be reinterpreted. Anyway, during the appeal, Dall'Igna and Ducati presented their data, and I would guess simply the results of the tests and the evidence that the main result that the component under investigation bring to the performance is the reduction of the temperature of the rear tire. They didn't neglect the aerodynamic effect, but they demonstrated that the main reason for the component to be mounted on the bike is the thermal. So just two days after the race, the Qatar race, I've made a video just in Italian I think there are the subtitles in English, but is automatically translated, so it's poor. But basically, in the video, I exactly predicted the result of the appeal. And the result of the appeal is, I would say, inevitable and evident and obvious, I would say. Because actually Ducati did everything the regulation asked to a constructor to make a bike regular. Because they presented the bike to the technical director, and the technical director validated the bike itself. They asked specific attention to the technical director on the component, on the spoiler, and the technical director accepted it. So this is why, considering the regulations, the appeal was something like nonsensical. What's the point in asking a verification on a component which was considered perfectly regular by the only judge of whether a device or fairing design falls into the design guidelines and the spirit of the regulations? There's no point. So here is my opinion about the reason for this appeal. This appeal was political. In fact, in all the interviews, the managers of the teams that made the appeal against Ducati knew perfectly that Ducati was right. So what's the purpose of this appeal? The purpose was political, in my opinion, and it is evident because if a large number of constructors work together against one of the competitors, it is evident that they want, against a competitor that has done everything perfectly in line with the regulations and has been validated by basically by the regulation themselves, because the technical director is intended as a filler for all the gaps in the technical regulations. So what's the point with the appeal? They just wanted to use their force, their number, their political power to force the regulations to be in some way changed during the championship in order to avoid following Ducati on another development path, because it is expensive, because probably Ducati has far more experience in aerodynamics than the other constructors. Remember that the modern era of the winglets started back in 2010, and was Stoner who won the first modern race with the winglets. And at the beginning, all the other constructors agree, saying that the winglets do not have any interesting effect. After 4 years, in 2014, Ducati with Dall'Igna, or maybe 2015, I have to check, reintroduced the winglets. And at the beginning, all the all the opponents were the same, had the same kind of opinion that all the aero thing was not really effective on the bike. But at the end of the championship, they all tried to make the same thing. In 2016, they all mounted winglets. And at the end of 2016, they realized that they had to change the regulations to make the winglets less, as they call it, less dangerous. So so they came up with all the closed loop fairing, I would say winglets, closed winglets. But what is evident to me is that this appeal is only a try to make Ducati a bit slower in the development of all the aerodynamic details, because probably they realized that Ducati is still ahead a couple of years probably. And this is confirmed by the fact that, for example, Ducati said they had, in case of the appeal, in case of them to lose the appeal, they had another device ready to be tested. So this is my point of view. If you have specific topics in engineering that you want to be explained in some way, just subscribe, comment, and ask me. Leave your comments, and anyway, see you next time if you want. Thanks for watching. Bye.